All right, instruction for the income of the balance and sheet account with the 5-1 with the current half of the group of the account with the distinct with the current of the assets should be the include with the cash for those assets that readily be convertible into the cash held within currently with the operation of the current claimed against the other amount of the current with the care of the which subject with the settlement with the ordinary cares of the business one with the year with the shall not be included the group of the account with the amount with the collection which is not reasonably assured 1 year because of the known financial condition of the debt with otherwise such items will be included with the account with 741 other assets amount with the except for the reasonable estimate of the realizable value of the current character with the doubt with the value of the script written down with the written chart of the account 6361 with the 0 for the uncountable accounts general administrator of the account 553 uncountable accounts as appropriate with the adjustment of these items doubtful with the value should be made with the direct reduction of the asset of the account with the chart of the items of care of the provision of the account with 7095 of the allowance of the uncollectible account for the estimated uncollectible amount. The carriers should transfer the estimated realizable value of the obsolete with the material of the discount account 741 other assets equatable to distribute the loss of due the obsolescence of among the accounts of the ordinarily charged with the such of the class of the material concurrently with the credit account of 712 of the material supplies. 5.2 record value of the securities owned the A1 investment of the security other than those issued with the assumed the accounting of the company shall be the record of the use of accounts of the cost but exclude the amount to pay for the accrued interest of the accrued dividends. Account 710 cash investment of the account 722 investment advance for the affiliate of the companies in the account 722 other investment advances shall be maintained in such a manner to reflect the marketable equity portion and see the definition 26 with the security investment for the purpose of determining net ledger value of the marketable equatable security in account 702 the should be considered the current portfolio of the marketable equitable security account 721 722 combined shall be considered a non-current portfolio. 4. Carriers of character of the security investment held at the maturity of the trading with the variable for sale of the real life of the holding gains loss of the trading type of the investment security will be recorded again account 551 miscellaneous income chart of the unrealized holding gains loss of the variable for the for sale type of the investment security will be recorded in account 799 over the comprehensive income. If there are change in the classification marketable equity of the security between the current and the non-current of the security of the transfer of the floor of the cost of the market value of the day of the transfer of the market value less of the cost of the market value of the become of the net cost value of the difference of the show of the account as if the realized loss include the determination of the net income. 6. The account company with the written down with the ledger value of any of the security examine the impairment of their value of the right of entirely of the non-reasonable prospect of realizing any of the value thereof in the long term and investment with the market equity security with the decline of the market value of the below the cost of the judge by to be other temporary cost of the base of the individual security shall be written down with the net cost basis. Amount of the write down should be accounted for to realize loss of the charge for the account 551 other income charge of the credit of the account 723 reserve adjustments for the investment of the security the new cost of the basis shall not be changed with the subsequent recoveries in the value. B1. Financial statement. The purpose of the carrier shall follow the principles of the equity accountable for all investment in corporate joint venture. For C, definition 21C of the 2 of the investment of the owning of the staff of the affiliate of the company given care of the ability to significantly influence operating financial policy on investors. And see definition 21B for the purpose of the instruction investment with the 20% with the purpose of outstanding voting stock with the investor with the indicator of the ability with the exercise of the significant influence over the investor with the absence of the evidence to the contrary. Alright, 2. Since the equity method is not effective the entry of the book of the account to be able to apply on the financial report of the board, the carrier shall establish the worksheet with the memorandum account of the basic work should be the memorandum account that needed. An investment of the account includes 1. Equity undistributed earnings loss of the investor with the sense of the day of the acquisition and the definition 21G. 2. The accumulated amortization difference between the cost and net asset of the data acquisition CB3 below the other adjustment of the disposition write down investments. 2. An account with include the investor share with the investor with the undistributed profits of the the loss of each for the reporting period subsequent to the acquisition investment, except for the year of the acquisition, the amount determined for the day of the acquisition and amortization reporting period. The difference between the cost of the net asset of the day of the acquisition account should be closed with the year end of the retained earnings memorandum account discussed in paragraph 3 below. 3. A retained earnings account include the 1. Equity of the undistributed loss of the investor over the cent of the day of the acquisition. 2. Accumulation of the amortization, the difference between the cost of the net access or acquired with the day of the acquisition CB3 and below. 4. Other memorandum consistent even such for the adjustment of the gain with the law of the disposition of the estimate of the recognition impairment of the investor share over the extraordinary prior period of adjustment report of investing financial statements. Instruction 1-2 D of the provision of the deferred tax for the reasonable assume that the undistributed earnings investor will be transferred to the investee with the taxable distribution of the member of the accounts will be closed at the year end of the retained earning memorandums account discussed in paragraph 3 above. The carrier shall return the following information: each investor with the report with the worksheet with the memorandum of account with the original cost of investment with the equity of the net assessment of the investor date of the acquisition. Allocate the difference between the cost of the equity and the net assets, namely the specific investors, the goodwill, the accumulated the amortization difference between the cost of the equity of the net assets. 5. The unamortized of the balance with the difference between the cost of equity and net assets with the equity of the undistributed everything is off each of the years since the day of the acquisition. 6. 11. The dividend of the received the sense of the day of the acquisition terminals. 8. The perceived the share of the investment. 4. Any difference between the investment and the cost of the share of the net asset of the investor the day of the acquisition shall be allocated specifically as asset for the investor with the extent of the difference with the attributed to them and the difference allocated the depreciable the amortizable asset for the depreciated the amortization through the investment income of the memorandum account to absorb the difference for the over the remaining life of the related aspect of the difference is not related to the specific account shall be considered goodwill the amortized over the responsible period not exceeding 40 years of the investment prior to November 1st, 1970. The amortization goodwill does not recover or the absence of the evidence of the goodwill with the limiting term existence. 5. The financial statements of the investor with the equity of the accounting should be timely with the accounting of the year of the investor with the defer of the from the investee. Then most of the available financial statement that may be utilized reporting should be consistent with the period. I usually spell investor investor, but by the sake of how leasers and lessers go, I'm using INVESTE as investor. Materials profit, but I'm going to switch now. Material profit loss of the transaction between the investor and the investee should be eliminated with the realized that either company of the two of the where consolidation transact the investor with the capital nature with the effect of the investor share with the investor stockholder equity should be reported the financial statement of the two where consolidation investee with will conduct with the dividends app with the outstanding with the accumulative of the preferred stock whether they're not declared any of their dividends declared with the computing and the share with the undistributed earnings and losses. The investor shall suspend the application of the equity of the method of the investment, include the investment memorandum of account together with any of the net advances made with the investor, with the reduced to zero additional loss that should not provide with the life of the investor, with the guaranteed obligation of the investee, with the otherwise committed with the provide the further financial support with the investee, subsequent report with the net income of the investor, they shall resume the applying the equity of the method at such time the share of the net income will equal to the share of the net loss not recognized during the period of suspension. 10. When the investor voting stock with the interest fails below the ownership of the described in paragraph B1 of the instruction of investment no longer qualify with the equity methods of the dividends received with the investment and subsequent period exceed the investor share earnings of such period investment memorandum, they include the memorandum account shall be reduced the excessive amount. All right, when level the ownership of the investment and increments described in the paragraph B1 instruction the equity method that shall be applied. The memorandum account with the investment including the income of the current year of the equity, the undistributed earnings left, the amortization return earning the prior year of the year, or equity, undistributed earnings left, the amortization shall be adjusted with a retroactive step-by-step evaluation of the determining equity of the asset of the acquisition or amortization adjustment equity of the undistributed earnings and loss at each low level of ownership of the small purchase is made over the period of time of the purchase is made with the qualified investment of the equity of the made with the latest chart on purchase of the made with the data acquisition. 12. The information has significant respect of the investor ownership of the investee shall made to discover the knowledge of the financial statements with annual reports will file with the board according with the general accepted accounting principles. Or when securities are fixed on the maturity date with the purchase of the discount with the total cost of the including with the broker fee, with the tax of the commission, etc., left within par with the discounts made with the amortized of the remaining life of the security through the periodic debt of the account with which the securities are carried preferably consistent with the entry, the recording the interest accruals, credits of the same account with which interest income of the credit with the no deficit will be made with the respect of the discounts upon securities held investment with the specific fund with the reason of the belief of the securities of the disposal of the redemption, otherwise after the maturity. Otherwise, if the lesser of the par will not be paid the day of the maturity, when security with the fixed maturity the day of the purchase of the premium, when the total cost include the brokerage fee with the tax commission, etc., for the extra of the par, so of the premium that may be authorized to the remaining life of the security through the periodic credit of the account with the security carried out, but preferably coincident with the entries of the recording interest of the accrual of the debits of the same account in which the interest of the income is recorded. No, carriers shall file with the generally accepted the accounting principle aware of the interpretation of the rules equity with accounting of the need of the obtaining the interpretation of the public account of the board. All right, 53. Discount with expense of the premiums of the debt. Large account shall be provided they cover the discount with expense of the premiums of the sale of the real sale of each of the cost for the fund of the debt with the receiver, the trustee, with the security, the issue, the benefit assumed with the company for the explanation of subclass C of the 765 funded unmature type of the debt and the net debt balance of the remaining ledger account with the discount with the premium should be included with account 771. Amortized with the discount net credit balance 772 with the unamortized premium on debit. The debit expense should be included with the account with the 743 off for other deferred debits. Each of the fiscal year there shall be the charge for the account 548 with the harmonization discount with the funded debit, the proportion with the consistent basis of each for the time of the debit, the balance of the discount premium, the account with the corresponding through the trade credit with the income of the 517, relief of the premium funding of the debt, similar proportion of each of the credit with the balance of these accounts related to the debt with expense. So shall be also charged with the account 548 with the proportional with the consistent with the base of the amounts for the respective debit, the balance of the discounts of the expenses applicable to particular with the issue of the obligation to be charged with directly with the account 548 time issue for the aggregated such amount does not appreciably affect the account of the method of the pruding apportioning of the discount of the issue of the cost of the premium of the account 558 548 with the interest method whenever the effect of the interest rate of the day the interest is applied with the carrying value debt less related discount issue cost of the place plus for the related premium each specific issue at the beginning of the end of the given period. However, other methods of the harmonization may be the result of the obtained materially different from those which result of the interest method. All right, when funded with the debt, whether it has been actually with the issue with the bona fide holding the value of the required of the accounting with the company of the portion of the balance remaining the account with containing the discount with the expense of the premium the funded debt with a subclass of the security required but applicable to the portion required with the shell of credit with the charge of the appropriate concurrently with the charge of the credit with the account with 519 miscellaneous income with the account with the 551 miscellaneous income charges to account 570 extraordinary items appropriate and extraordinary for the tax on each account such proportionals are based on the ratio of the part of the value security required per value with all of the security subclass of the actual outstanding immediately before the requirement of the gain law for the extinguishment of the debt, with the debt and the maturity serially, which is required to satisfy with the sinking the fund of the requirement should not be recorded as extraordinary items regarding the limit of the shall include the accounts 519, 551 appropriately such the gain loss with them separately to discuss the reports to the board. 555.4 with the discount premium and assessment of the capital stock. Separate ledger for the accounts will be provided each for the subclass of the capital stock. The issue of the assumed the accounting company of the coverage of the discount subject with the premium and real life at the time of the scale of the capital stock. General levies for the assessment of the gains for the stockholders credit the appropriate ledger accounts for the subclass of the capital stock for the gains for the levy. The assessment with made with the total of the net debit balance for the ledger account that will include the accounts of the 93 discount with the capital stock. Total net credit balance of the accounts and the 94 premium and assessment of the capital stock. D. Discount subclass for the capital stock with the offset with the reduced charge of the account 1794 premium the massive for the capital stock with the except for the national chain for the premium of the asset for the so they have included their own account 1795 with the other capital extent with the net gain for the reacquisition resale with the retirement of the sale stock apple the subclass have they included therein with the remaining discount with the armament type of the charge with the account 616 other debts retained earnings that may be retained with the carried account 1793 discount with the capitals until the tax with the discount with the applies is retired. G. In the case of the accounting company permitted with the elected to approve with the board to distribute all of the part of the net balance of the other than paid in capital of the stockholder, the amount of the distributor shall be charged with the account 795 other capital. Alright, when capital tax is reacquired, the purchase of the donation of the retired cancelable account with 791 capital stock should be charged with the par value with say the value with no par stock with no par stock with say the value with the proportional amount with which for the particular class of the stock included the account 791 except for the reacquisition cost over the recovered value of the stock shall be charged with 795 of the other capital extent of the accumulated with the net gains included the acquisition account the account applicable to reacquisition release resale retirement of such subclass the remaining extent of the reacquisition cost shall be charged with the account 616 other debts retained earnings any of the except for the recorded value over the reacquisition cost should be credited with the 1705 other capital. Alright, F. When capital stock is reacquired, the purchase of donation will not retire with the cancel will not properly includable with the sinking other than funds for the reacquisition cost to be charged with the account 798.5 of treasury stock resale with the 798.5 of treasury stock should be credited with the cost of the game that shall be credited with the account 795 of the other capital loss that shall be charged with this account 795 of the other capital extent of the previous net gains for the sale of the retirement same class of the stock with included therein otherwise account 616 other debts retained earnings. Alright, 5.955, the joint liabilities. Accounting of the liability company shall have stated the liability balance sheet with the difference between the total par value of the security joint and the surveyorly issue to the other portion of liability, which other joint agreement expected with the liquidated other party and properties that with the joint agreement the amount of the jointly with the surveyorly issue the security expected to liquidate other parties for the parity for the shown of the contingent liability according with the instruction 5.6 for the pertaining contingent asset and liabilities. Alright, contingency. The proper accounting treatment of the contingency depends on whether the contingency is probable of the event, of the likely to reasonable, possibly, chance of the current of the future event is more likely remotely less than likely remote, but the chance of the current of the future of the event was like even slightly. Alright, loss of contingency must require with the probable of the amount with the loss of the reasonable estimate with the only with the reasonable possible the footnote of the scope of the required they are remote footing the disclosure that not required permitted to gain contingency usually it are not reflected the account since if the do so might recognize the revenue prior to the realization adequate the disclosure should be made with the contingency that might result in the game of the care shall be exercised to avoid misleading implication likelihood of revitalization. Alright, 5-7, the long-term obligation, the commitment under unconditional purchase of the obligation associated with the supply of financial arrangement, the future payment of the long-term borrowing of the redeemable stock with the show the discover the corns for the general safety the accounting principle show the disclosure should not preclude the accounting recognition of the substance of the financial arrangement with the acquisition assets of the incurrence of a liability, or instruction for clearing accounts.